Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you with this little guy. This is the Benchmade Knives 300. This is a very interesting piece. It's a unique piece, and I want to thank very much my buddy Andrew for sending this guy along so I could take a look at it here today. So thank you very much for that, Andrew. Next thing, size comparison. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica. Here it is against your steel wheel cut jack in 3-inch 3-inch steel. Why do I want to say that? 3-inch blade. There you go. And here it is against the Rat number 1 and against your another Benchmade here, the Benchmade 940. And so very, very big knife. And actually one dimension that's really crucial and that isn't immediately apparent is the thickness of this guy. This is a chubby bunny. If we hold this up next to the Spyderco Delica, holy crap is this guy thick. In fact, this guy is slightly thicker than your Ontario Rat number 1. So that is a big deal, and that is something that may be of relevance to you in your discussion. Then finally, we're just going to do a quick review on this guy. I tried to do a good, great, bad, and the ugly, but honestly, it felt like I was just beating up on it. This is a knife that is, in many ways, okay. I mean, there's not all that much wrong with it, but the stuff that is wrong with it is pretty damn wrong, and it makes me just, yeah. So I'm just going to stick to the quick and want to talk about what's good about this knife and what's bad and, well, pretty ugly about this little guy, and then move on to the final conclusion here. So first off, on the good side, I actually do like this funky G10 pad, and you can see what they've done here is they've taken a layered G10. Here, I'll see if I can zoom in. Yeah, you can see the individual layers, the blue and the black on the G10 here, and then when you cut through that, well, there, sorry about this. Guys, zoom issues. All right. Whoa there. Anyways, when you cut through that G10, which is layered in topographic, hashtag not a brilliant man, you can see that it reveals these individual layers as you go deeper and deeper. And so when they do these kind of lateral cuts on this, you end up with this really funky sort of psychedelic look to it. And you know what? It's interesting. It's different. It's not something you see every day. And, you know, this texturing, the ribbing for your pleasure, really does make this guy much more secure in the hand here. And so that's I got to give him credit for that. Next thing, the thumb studs on this guy are definitely out of the slicing path. You can see here that just if you're doing a straight through cut, you might snag potentially if you're doing some kind of a pushing cut like this, but honestly, they're fine. And considering that Benchmade does have a proclivity for thumb studs in the path, I appreciate that very much. Next thing, I do appreciate the fact this is running on phosphor bronze washes. As you can see in there, and as you saw in the disassembly, that's nice because PB washes offer, well, a degree of durability, or, well, robustness maybe is a better term. They're not going to be as sensitive to things like sand and gunk and whatnot, and make this guy a very easy knife to clean out. Given that it has a fully flow-through design, if you get sand and gunk and whatnot in there, all you really need to do is walk over to a stream, kind of flick it around a little bit, and lube it up when you get a chance next, and you'll be back in business, whereas bearings are a little bit more diva-like. So I appreciate that. And then finally, on the good side to me is that they did try something weird here. They did make an axis lock flipper. This is not something that Benchmade had ever done before, and we'll see if they ever do it again. But that is something that is different and interesting. And absolutely, at least for me, came at a time where it was like, wow, Benchmade's just doing the same thing over and over again. At least this gave them something new to try on. We'll talk about their success with this guy a little bit later, but nonetheless, it is an interesting piece. So I appreciate those things. Those are the good. It's an axis lock flipper. It is running on washes. The thumb stud is definitely out of the slicing path, which is good. And then this funky G10 is kind of neat. On the bad side, and unfortunately, like I said, this is a knife that is kind of really defined by its badness. Because, I mean, one thing I could throw in the good is that this is just kind of fine. It will cut things. It works at some level. But the badness of it is really what defines this guy. Because there are a couple of annoying issues that really take this out of contention. To start with, it is pretty thick behind the edge. It's not terrible, but it's definitely a little bit worse than your normal Benchmade. And, you know, so that makes this not such a great tool for actually cutting things. Moving on, it does have quite the substantial pocket pecker out the back of it. It has a flipper tab that looks like a little woodpecker pecking on whatever's in your pocket all day long, with no chamfering on the edges. Not a beautiful thing. Not a big fan of that. So there you go. Next thing, the clip on this guy is a serious ergonomic hotspot. Because not only are you feeling this corner and this corner here, but you get this big ramp right in the middle here. It's a fine clip. It works well for getting in your pocket, but holy crap, as you grab and really bear down on this knife, I mean, you will see very clearly the outlines of this clip on your hand, and you will feel them for weeks to come. That's an exaggeration, but still. is a serious ergonomic hotspot. And the fact that they've got that clip hotspot in there along with all these other little finger grooves, which work fine if that's the way your fingers fit in this guy, just mean that this is going to be ergonomically touch and go for a lot of people. Maybe with bigger hands it'll work a little bit better. Next thing, this is actually a surprisingly heavy knife. We'll go ahead and pull the scale onto the screen here and take a look. We're coming in at 4.68 ounces, which is not something, that's a fair amount of weight, especially for the length of this guy, which comes in right around 3.1 ounces. No, 3 1/8. There we go. Yeah, math is hard. Anyways, so yeah, that's a little bit on the heavy side for the amount of blade you're getting here. And actually, speaking of the amount of blade, that's another unfortunate issue here is, like I said, in a lot of places here in the U.S., 3 inches is kind of the line. And so to come in right above 3 inches, you're not getting any meaningful use out of that last eighth of an inch there. Instead, you're just getting, well, you're not getting a whole bunch. And so you've got a knife here that is just over the legal line in a lot of places, but for no damn good reason. That's unfortunate. Next thing is that this is a super thick knife. I showed this off already, but this is absolutely a chubby bunny. I mean, I understand that, in order to do this kind of topographic milling, if you will, of this, you require a little bit of the thickness, but I don't love that. That's not something I'm a fan of particularly. And then finally, on the bad side, which would probably be ugly if I was doing that, is the detent on this knife is very, very light. You can flick this guy out without even touching the axis lock at all. This will come open at a stiff breeze or a really, and unfortunately what this means is that both the thumb stud and the flipper opening are not super compelling. This has been just serviced by me, and as a result, it's in better condition than most, and if you really do a strong light switch kind of thing, you can usually get it to fire, but in my experience, the way you open this knife is that you start popping it open with the flipper tab, and then you give it enough wrist that it pops open reliably. And that's just not great. And so their first axis lock flipper, unfortunately, is just not a very good flipper. And I don't really appreciate that. And even as a thumb stud knife, that detent is just a little bit too light. Given its tip up, so it's not like a dangerously light detent, because the blade can't open anyways, but not a fan. So, to me at least, those are the bad things. Is that the detent is really light, making it not a great flipper. It is very thick, it is very heavy. The blade is just over a legal line, doesn't need to be. Clip is a serious hot spot. It has a substantial pocket pecker, and it is pretty thick behind the edge. Final conclusion on this guy is kind of driven by all of those bad things I was just talking about. I mean, the one big feature that this knife has is that flipper tab. And that's what makes this different from every other Benchmade. The thing is, unfortunately, it just doesn't work that well. It's not a great flipper knife. I mean, you can use the flipper tab with some wrist to open the knife reliably. This is true. But the thing is, no. If you're going to do a flipper, you need to do it a little bit better than that. You need to give it a good flipping action. Just having this huge tab on there as a way to let you open the knife before you wrist it open is not that great, and considering you don't even need the flipper tab to wrist this damn knife open, I don't freaking know. That doesn't do it for me, and so the knife ends up feeling pretty compromised as a result. This is not a knife that is like awful, that is dangerous. I am very sure that somebody, particularly if you're not like a flipper action snob or something like that, you could be very happy carrying this knife. This is not like junk or anything like that. And with the blade, 154 cm and whatnot, it's fine. And so if you get one of these for free, okay, great, carry it. Hey, maybe grind off the flipper tab or something. But the thing is, there are many, many better options. This is a $150 knife from Benchmade, and that buys you a bunch of stuff. For 30 bucks more, you could get a Benchmade Griptilian in 20 CV. It's also G10. It's got an incredible steel that's cut above this one, pun fully intended, I suppose. And frankly, it's a little bit better made. You could get a Spyderco PM2, which is right over here, which is going to just be a better knife overall, and you'd pay actually less than this. You could get a ZT-0450 for like 10 bucks more, a ZT-0350, another big flipper, beefy kind of knife. This is a knife that, although it works, I would just never recommend, because for the price, you can do a lot better, and what they actually set out to do here, they didn't end up doing so well. So there you go. That's the Benchmade 300. It's an interesting idea. It's a nice effort, and I'd sure love to see them do an axis lock flipper a little bit better than this by working that detent out. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, I'm afraid that the 300 is, well, not a group of Spartans who are going to fend off a group of an opposing army. That one failed. But anyways, hope you had a good day. Hope you found this interesting. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.